Hello, everyone, and welcome back to I Want to Teach English. I'm your host, JV Torres, and today I'm being joined by a very special guest from the organization Unidos US. And if you're not familiar with this organization, it's the nation's largest Latino civil rights and advocacy organization. It was founded back in 1968 to empower the Hispanic community and challenge social, economic, and political barriers. And as a nonprofit, a nonpartisan entity headquartered in DC with regional offices nationwide, it operates through expert research, policy advocacy, community programs, you name it. So there's a lot in this network, and it's a pretty big organization. It's a very important organization, especially people who are involved in the Latino community. So with that, I'd like to bring in the Vice President of Unidos US, Miss Elizabeth Zamudio. Elizabeth, welcome to the show.
Hi, great. Thank you for having me.
So I want to kickstart this conversation, if we will, because there's a lot I'd like to cover, or at least I'd like to touch on. And I want to begin first by you. Hopefully you can kind of tell us a little bit more about the organization, what it does, what you do, and the work that you do in this organization.
Sure. So as you said, Unidos US, we're the largest Latino civil rights organization in the country. We've been around for over 55 years, and we have we like to say our secret sauce. We work with an affiliate network. And so our affiliate network are over 300 community-based organizations across the country in over 40 states. And these are these organizations who are working directly in the heart of our communities and Latino communities, doing the day-to-day work on the ground, in community, with community. And so we work in partnership with them as an intermediary. We work on the programmatic side. We provide program support and some evidence-based programming for our affiliates. And then at the federal and state policy side, we do some policy and advocacy work and bring and uplift the voice of our affiliates who are doing that groundwork up to the federal and state policy level to advocate for what's going on in the community.
This is fantastic. I'm really glad that we're talking. Now, I read in your bio that you began, I guess, as a college counselor. Am I right? With
Yep.
Working with first generation students. So tell me what you learned from that experience in those early years, and how much of that you still carry over into what you're doing now?
Yeah. So I started my career as a high school college counselor. I love that work. I loved working with students. I still love working with students. I haven't left education. It's just a different form of education and work that I'm in now. But that work was really impactful and meaningful for me as a first-generation student myself, a first-generation graduate and first-generation professional. I didn't have a counselor who helped guide me through the college application process and going on and guiding me through what it meant to be a college student. And because of that, I graduated with a significant amount of debt. I'm sure many folks can relate to that. And
Yes.
So I didn't want others to have the same experience I did. So I became a counselor, and I started working out of graduate school. I worked directly in downtown Los Angeles and South LA. And I started working with first-gen students, mostly first-gen students, Latino and Black students, working directly in our communities, and supporting students and helping them support them and their families, helping inform families of what options they had. And that really drives my passion and my mission to this day, because I really believe in the transformative power of education. I know that can sound cliche, but yeah. I'm a living testament to it. I'm the daughter of immigrant parents from Mexico, and I am living my parents' dream of pursuing higher education. And I know that had I not gone on to higher education, my life would have looked very different, and my kids' lives would look very different. And I see it with my cousins who are back in Mexico and the different lives that we live, because I've had the opportunity to live here and grow up here and go to the education system here. And so I know that transformative power of education, and I want all of our students to be able to have access to educational opportunities and be able to make those choices and have access to high quality educational opportunities through, and be able to make high value decisions based on that.
So there's a lot of things personal for you in this, because it's something that you can look back and connect that to your parents. probably some of their struggles and seeing the students and their struggles, and you're kind of in between here going, what could I do to help, right? I think a lot of us in this field do that. I know as you're talking and telling your story, it's very similar in a lot of ways to my own experience, because my parents are also immigrants from Mexico, and just dealing with, all the stigma that comes with that, being a child of immigrant family. My parents were migrants, like back in the day when they would go from state to state, they would go from wherever the season and whatever crops they were picking. That's where my parents were. All my siblings were born in different states. But anyway, so when people ask me, like, why do I do this work? Why do I spend so much time? Why do I invest so much in for English learners or multilingual learners? It's like my parents, man. Like that's my blood. Like I want to help them. And I totally like just want to say, incredible things about people like you who do this kind of work, who are in the battlefield, if you will, at least from a policy standpoint, from the politics. So hopefully you can tell us a little bit more about that part of the world, the work that you do. Talk about what are the ins and outs and the inner workings from the political perspective.
Sure. So on the policy and advocacy side, we work both at the state level and at the federal level, advocating for equitable educational opportunities. And we work with coalition partners. So we don't do the work alone. We work with other civil rights organizations and other organizations, like in California. We work with Californians Together, which is a big coalition of organizations working towards supporting multilingual learners in the state. So that's a really great example of big multilingual learner coalition. We also work with larger coalitions like NABE, the National Association for Bilingual Education. And so we work across all of these different coalitions to advance and advocate for policy changes that positively impact our communities. And of course, one thing that I think that we really work to amplify is that multilingual education isn't just a Latino issue. Many times people think multilingual education is just for Latino immigrants and it's only for Spanish speakers. It's for many communities. There are many students who benefit from multilingual education benefits, including monolingual English speakers in the classroom and monolingual English speaking teachers who receive benefits from professional development grants supporting multilingual learners. So we advocate for efforts like that, like the professional development grants. They've most recently been suspended, but those professional development grants help support teachers in their additional education to support multilingual learners and learning new strategies or enhancing their existing strategies to support learners in their classrooms so that learners feel welcome and don't feel isolated, and also helping create welcoming environments for families who may be unfamiliar with the education system in the United States or who may not feel comfortable coming into the classroom setting or unsure of where they can approach a teacher in the classroom.
Sure. And this is something working in the public school system as I do, I hear this a lot. And the rumbling comes from all sides, right? It's coming from administration, it's coming from the families themselves, and sometimes those questions are posed to us and I go, what do we do in these scenarios? And, it's not really clear what the right answer is, right? Elizabeth, I mean, how do you answer when you're trying to navigate through the political landscape as it is now? Because there's a lot of uncertainty, and we can talk about policies and we can talk about funding, which I think I want to really talk about funding if we can, because, there's a lot of interest in it for somebody like me, because a lot of the people that I'm affiliated with, a lot of the organizations that I work with are looking at, their funding and their budgets, and a lot of it has been slashed. I think you alluded to it when you were just talking about some of these things don't exist anymore. Like there's, we have to find alternative ways to fund a lot of these things.
Yeah. No, I think there is a great opportunity for folks right now to be able to use their voice and leverage the power that we all have as individuals, right? So those of us who are able to vote, we have the power to be able to exercise our opportunity to vote when we can in local elections. And also call up our local representatives and share with our representatives what are our concerns. And so there's opportunity to share that because many times representatives may not be clear about what it is that their constituents are concerned about. And so it's important for folks. Many times we hear from folks, well, it doesn't matter what I say. They're not going to hear what I have to say. But, a lot of representatives do. They read your letters, they read your emails, they listen to the voicemails. And so it does make a difference. And so we do encourage folks to call their representatives and have their voice heard and share what's on top of mind for you. And then at the local level, I think what's within our individual domain is what can you do at the local level? Is it being able to, as a parent, maybe you can go and speak to your teacher and your child's teacher and talk to them about what can I do? What are some strategies? Or if I'm an educator, how do I reach out to families? And I know one key strategy when I was an educator, when I was a counselor, I would call families just to call them and to tell them like, hey, I met with your student today and they're amazing, just to give them good news, just to share a great message. Because many times families are socialized to think that anytime they're getting a phone call from school, it's bad news. And so I wanted to.
Isn't that the truth? That's the truth.
Right? It's like, oh my gosh, the school's calling. What's happening? Right?
What happened? What did he do?
Right? Oh, right? No. So I wanted to break that. I wanted to call families and tell them, oh my gosh, I met with so-and-so today and we made their college list and I'm so excited for them, right? And just giving them good news and sharing hope and you build rapport that way. And I think many times families don't receive those phone calls and it's a really great opportunity. It's somewhat of a low-hanging fruit for teachers to be able to build a trusting relationship with families. And that's an easy strategy for us to develop that trusting relationship in spite of everything else that's going on in the world right now.
Sure. And I want to echo that. And if anybody's watching this video and has, want to chime in on the whole idea of contacting parents when it's not something bad, leave a comment below in the comment section, because we want to hear those kinds of stories. We don't hear enough of those, but you're absolutely right. And I think maybe part of it is that the teachers are, really overextended or exhausted. And they're like, oh God, like I just have so much work to do. And like, making phone calls, some teachers have a lot of students, and they have lots of students. And to make all those phone calls and be chippy about it and be like all happy about it, sometimes teachers get worn down. And I get that, but you really got to dig deep sometimes, right, Elizabeth? You got to dig deep and really find that motivation to say those positive things, because those are those parents that they send those kids to school with all these, hopes and dreams. I mean, who wouldn't want to hear a good phone call like that, right? You can make someone's day, if not more.
Yeah. And nowadays we can text.
Right.
Back in my day, it was a phone call, but nowadays we can text parents, we can email them.
You certainly hit that one on the head. Now, I want you to talk a little bit, if you can, about your role as VP. Okay, because this I don't want to like make this all about like any. I do want to get into the whole the nuts and bolts about the teaching part. I know that's a big thing. It's a big area on your plate, and I want to come back to it. But since you're in this area of education, and that is a big that's a big plate. So I was kind of hoping you can kind of tell us what exactly you're most focused on in terms of education right now. Like what is your big project right now in terms of education?
Sure.
As a VP.
So at Unidos, we cover a wide spectrum, as you can imagine. Our education portfolio covers early childhood education all the way through career pathways. And everything in between. And so we are very focused. We're hyper focused in the policy arena on early childhood education, K-12 policy, and higher education. Mm-hmm. And then on the programmatic side, we're very focused on high school and post-secondary access, and then career pathways into career advancement opportunities. So we're very focused on, I think our North Star right now is doubling the number of Latino four-year graduates by 2040. So that's where we center ourselves. We focus, all of our programmatic work is focused around that goal. we're focused on supporting our young men. We know that our young men need a lot of support right now. So we have a new framework that we'll be rolling out in the new year called our Men of Action framework. And it's developed with a Latino lens in mind, because we know that the Latino male experience is very different from just the general male experience. Latino men are dealing with, as you know, transnationalism, multilingualism, cultural norms and expectations. There's so many other pressures that Latino males have that are unique to the Latino experience. And so we wanted to develop a framework that speaks to that, that speaks to the lived experience of young men and how to support young men as educators from an educator lens, and then also to help inform some policy developments so that we can then systematize that and hopefully create some systems change at our district levels to ensure that our students are receiving the supports in the schools. So that's another big area of focus for us. On the higher ed side, we're looking at how do we bring down the student debt burden for many Latinos who are going on to higher ed at incredible rates, the highest that we've ever been going into higher education, but we are graduating with significant numbers of student debt. So how do we lower that debt burden? And then what are we doing to protect our Hispanic serving institutions in this moment right now? So that's another area that we're looking at, and ensuring that Latino students are not only enrolling in higher education, but that they're completing higher education. So another key area of focus for us.
You know, you brought up high school graduation rates. And this is something I spoke to many people about when I did work with high school students for a number of years. And I saw this, like, it was very, very challenging, I think, especially with, and I don't know, I can't speak to every other culture, but I can definitely talk about, you know, the Hispanic culture and how that's always been a big issue with the high school graduation rate. So the fact that is an emphasis for the organization, I think is a big key, because we want our communities to flourish, and part of that success rate is going to be equated to their education level. And that's something I'm always telling people and students. I'm always encouraging them to stay in school, because you know where this goes a lot of times. You know, they want to get checked up. You know, they want to start their family early, and you know that, I don't know if that's cultural or not. I mean, there's a lot of different theories, but certainly we can't deny that is an issue, and we definitely. I'm glad to hear you say that. And particularly your take on young Latino men. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping that you can elaborate a little bit more about that, because this is something that's obviously near and dear to me. But I'm wondering what is the approach that the organization is taking? Can you elaborate a little bit more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So one thing that there's a lot of conversation out there around, I think, just a lot of generalizations that are unfairly being made around our young men, that our young men are just disengaged, that they don't care, that they just want to go and make money. And I think that's unfair to our young men. I think there are a lot of factors that are affecting and influencing our young men, especially young men maybe who come from low-income households who have family pressure to get a job to help support the family, right? And help contribute to the household income. And that could be playing a factor into whether or not they can pursue post-secondary. Those are influences that aren't part of the general conversation. And boys are unfairly labeled. And so we wanted to create a framework that instead centers the Latino male experience and speaks to educators around how to approach Latino males from this student-centered experience, and what are some best practices to support Latino males. And using, of course, we pulled from strategies from other communities. I know that there's been great work done amongst the Black male community. So we pulled from key strategies there, but we also use a LAT crit theory as our critical analysis around what is it that makes the Latino experience unique. And so we've merged a variety of different experiences to really speak to what that experience is. And then one of the key factors is the lack of mentorship amongst our first generation males, because and this goes across our young women as well. As first gen, you many times don't have anyone to look up to. And so we want to be able to provide those mentorship opportunities and someone that you can look up to and see yourself in. And so we want to build in opportunities where our young men are seeing other role models that they can follow in their footsteps and follow those pathways and see opportunities for themselves as well. And it doesn't have to just be the traditional 4-year pathway. It can be other economic mobility opportunity pathways. So that could be apprenticeship pathways. It can be a degree seeking pathway in the 2-year community college pathway. If a student is one of our key partners that we're working with, no surprise, as a former counselor, is ASCA, the Association of School Counselors. Yes. And we're working with them because with some of the counselor training, a counselor may hear a student say, I'm interested in being a mechanic because my Theos are mechanics. And a counselor may just dismiss them like, oh, okay, well, go be a mechanic, right? And they may dismiss them. Well, instead, how about we talk to the student about, oh, well, maybe there's opportunity for us to look at a pathway at the community college where you could receive a certificate in automotive mechanic engineering, or maybe you want to look at mechanical engineering as a degree opportunity, right? And talking to students about different career pathways instead of shutting them out. And so those are some of the opportunities that we're speaking about, and reframing the conversation that we have with young men rather than stigmatizing them.
That is fantastic. I'm glad to hear you say that. That is such a key component, I think, to really getting things moving in the right direction, or at least in a different direction, because we want our youth to have options. We want them to pick, make a decision that's, maybe they didn't think of before because nobody presented it to them before. And, this is something that obviously that I would encourage and love to be a part of. So, hey, if you guys ever, open up something down here in Baltimore, I would love to be a part of some kind of mentoring thing like that. Because if anything, and in fact, when I do work with, with kids, with young adult males or young men, I always, tell them, I came from very humble beginnings, there was not high expectations, when I looked around, it's like, it was everybody working either in a farm or, like you said, like a mechanic, it was always those things. And for me, like, the idea of going to college was so alien because of my surroundings. Yeah. But as I got older, being around teachers, they encouraged me to think about those things. And sure, that's the direction I went. Now, it didn't happen very easily because, I come from a rough background. So I got into a lot of fights and whatever. So I can totally relate a lot of times when I'm talking to boys and young men about it and say, listen, I walked this road too. And I ended up here, like with a master's degree and all these other accolades and all these things that I do. You can do those things. You don't have to give up your manhood or anything, So, and I'm glad that you are doing this. This is a very important work, and of course we're not neglecting to talk about the ladies either. But for this conversation, at least for this to move on from this, I want to talk about how teachers, and let's be realistic. There's at least where I work, there aren't very many Latino men teachers. Okay, yeah. So they're few and far in between. Not saying there aren't any, but by and large, the majority of the teaching staff that I've worked with have been either white women or Black women. And so how can teachers build trust in families when there's that language barrier, when there's that culture barrier, if you want to call it a barrier, but there's such stark differences in culture and language. And sometimes, come on, we're from that culture, and they're going to be a little reluctant a lot of times from listening and hearing. And how do teachers bridge that gap? How do teachers cross over and make a difference and get their attention? What would you say?
Yeah, I think another really important area of our work is our family engagement work, and something that I've observed over the years is that I think there's just misunderstanding on both sides. So we have a little bit of resistance from the family side, where families are unsure of their role, right? They're not sure if, especially if they're immigrant families, many times immigrant families are unsure of whether or not they can step onto campus. They're not sure if they can, engage with teachers. They come in with a very respectful manner with teachers and say, no, teachers are the experts. I'm going to leave them alone, and I don't want to interrupt them in their flow. And so families take a step back, right? They want to fully trust the educators. And then on the other side, we have educators who may want more family engagement, and may not understand why the families aren't engaging. And so we have the families not engaging because they want to leave the educators alone because they're experts, but the teachers are like, well, why aren't you coming in? But then there's also, we have families who are working multiple jobs, or they're working graveyard shifts, right? And so then we have some educators who make assumptions. Well, they're not coming in because they don't care. They don't care about their students. They don't want to come in. And so one thing that we've done when we work with school districts, part of our work, we do trainings with school districts to train on family engagement best practices with school districts. And so we do professional development with school districts and their teachers and administrators on best practices and creating welcoming environments. And one thing that we go through is this exercise around how do we create those welcoming environments. And so we go through, what are your current strategies? And many times some folks will say, well, we have open house, but no one shows up. I say, okay, great. Well, how did you advertise the open house? What time was the open house? What time are your teacher conferences? How did you do outreach for the teacher conferences? And so thinking differently, maybe innovatively around how do you conduct those teacher conferences, sending the positive messages home rather than calling when there's only bad news. Maybe there's teacher conferences during the lunch hour. Maybe there's some schools, they only host teacher conferences right after school at 3 p.m. That's maybe not feasible for many families who don't have flexible work schedules. It's the middle of the workday. Yeah. And then maybe other families, they just can't, maybe that works for some families who are working graveyard shifts, and maybe that works for them, right? So meeting families in the middle, maybe switching it off semester by semester. So having families meet in the middle, I think that's one thing. And then checking our own assumptions. I think that's a big thing that we tell educators is maybe you're working with families who are coming from different cultures and different backgrounds, but let's not assume. We don't know what's going on at home. And so let's open up a conversation and extend a hand and a warm welcome and see where that takes us. We always want to start with the best of intentions. And it can be daunting. It can be frightening. But if all of us joined this sector because we care and we want to work with students and families and we want to help. So I think that there is that opportunity for us to bridge and find common ground.
I was, as you were talking, I remembered the COVID years and how we would do that somewhat online. We do it virtually. And I'm curious if there's anybody out there that's doing maybe a hybrid type of parent conference like what you're talking about, or an open house when okay, let's say parents can't make it necessarily physically, but because they have a lot of small children in the house, who knows? But they do want to tune in, and it's not like they're not interested. It's not like they don't care. But maybe giving them that option where they can tune in, maybe watch it. It can be streamed. It can be streamcast or something. And this way they can get involved in the comment section. You know what I mean? Like there's ways to engage people now with their phone, and you don't necessarily have to be in the same place. So, I don't know if there's anybody out there that does that. If anybody watching does something that's creative ways to get parents involved in the school in that way, please leave us a comment below. We'd like to hear what some of those suggestions might be, or things that you've already had some success with.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because we did learn so much in the COVID years. Yeah. And let's not throw that away. Our families are very tech savvy.
Yes, they are.
all over WhatsApp. And
TikTok, I mean, they live on TikTok, man. Let me tell you, they have WhatsApp. WhatsApp is the thing, and I feel like that's an untapped resource, honestly, because I guess it just never really caught on in American culture, but for Hispanic cultures and other cultures, really, I mean, WhatsApp is it, and we don't utilize that in the education system, and maybe we should look at that. Look into that. We have just security things we have to look at, but getting around some of those things and locking it in, that'd be a great place to engage our parents and other people in the community for sure. All right, now I'm going to throw, if you don't mind, I'd like to throw a chunky question at you, Elizabeth, if that's all right. What advice would you give to leaders? Because you had kind of touched on this before. Those leaders, when you're talking about you do your PDs with them, but what advice would you give those leaders who want to scale and they want to scale equity-focused programs across districts? Because that could be a confusing term for a lot of people. They might interpret equity differently than other places. So maybe you can kind of define what that looks like from the lens of Unidos US.
Yeah. So one thing that we always ground ourselves in our focus on students. Either students or in families, depending on the stream of work that we're focused on. And so I think for folks, if it's a student success team that's working together, what is it that you're centering your students and what is that goal? And so then from there, that's where you build out. That's where I think we can really ground ourselves in what we want those markers to be on success and carrying out what that would look like for equity and overall student success. So at Unidos, when we look at our high school programs, indicators for us are, did our students feel a sense of belonging? Did they feel like they could see themselves on a college campus? Do they see themselves completing a degree? So those are indicators for us that we did our job and that we're getting them to that pathway. And then for our post-secondary students who are completing the programs, do they feel confident in going to meet with their professors? Do they feel confident in seeking internships and going to interviews, job interviews? And so we want them to be fully prepared to enter the workforce so that they have these career mobility opportunities once they graduate, so that they are successfully contributing members of society once they graduate from post-secondary. And so thinking about what those markers are for our families, we would like them when we have them go through our family engagement program. One of the markers for us is that we'd like to see them at the end of the program either set up a teacher conference with their teacher or attend a school board meeting. Do something, right? Engage in one of those ways. But if we can see them successfully move in that direction, then we know that we've done our job in moving them into building their confidence.
Absolutely. There's plenty of studies out there that show evidence that, the more engaged families are and students get into the schools, I mean, the greater chances they're gonna excel academically, and that bodes well not only for them and their families, but also for the school system itself. Especially now, people are looking at those data numbers, and we're just like, yeesh, scratching our heads, right? So we want to engage our students, we want to engage our families, so that they stick to the programs and see this through and grow academically. It's just better for everyone in the community. It's better for their lives. It's better for everyone and that is around these people, because their success is the success of the community. That's really what it boils down to, right?
Absolutely.
Well, I tell you, this is you gave us a lot to chew on, and I'm really filled with a lot bit more hope. I'm glad to see that there's organizations like yours that are out there actively, pursuing this and pushing hard. So let me leave you with this question. I want this one question here, Elizabeth. What gives you hope right now about the future of education for multilingual learners, given all the adversity and all the challenges that we face in our schools, inside and outside, across the board? What gives you hope in spite of everything that we see? I know as an educator, we see a lot of negativity, but it's not all going downhill and burning flames. So what gives you hope?
Yeah, the students. the students every day. Any chance that I get to be around students, they fill my cup. They give me hope because they, in spite of all the challenges that are thrown at our community right now, and many others in the educational space, the students are still continuing, and they still have their eye on the prize, that they're still going to graduate from high school. They're still going on to their post-secondary pathways. They're not letting anyone stop them, and they're going to continue on. And that gives me so much hope. I know that we're in good hands, that we have a generation coming behind us that's going to continue going on, and they're going to take care of us as we continue on.
Absolutely. And that's, that's really my approach to it. And then, I'm in the trenches like any other teacher, and I have to have these conversations. They're hard conversations to have with kids, and they're hard conversations to have with their families or parents that come and they're like, we're not sure about this or we're not sure about that. I'm like, you are sure about one thing, that you're going to take care of your business. If you take care of your business, that's what you are in control of. Can't control everything else in the world. Can't control everything outside of that. But what you can control, that's what you focus on. And I guess that's the best I could do for a lot of these families, because, I guess they're looking for some kind of answer, but the answer really is you put in the work, you take care of yourself, you take care of your family, you push forward, and we'll come out good on the other side. But you just got to have hope that you can do that, And I'm just glad that there are organizations like yours, that's on our side here, that are really pushing back and really fighting the good fight. And you hear that a lot, and that's become cliche, but it really means a lot when somebody's, fighting the good fight. And I'm hoping that's where we are together, right? Fighting the good fight. Yeah. Anyways, any last words you'd like to add to this? I thought this was pretty fascinating. I really love what you're doing. Your organization is fantastic. And I'd like for you to tell our viewers, how they can get in touch with you or your organization, and share any social media, blogs, or anything, websites. Where can people find you? Where can people find out more about Unidos US and you, if you'd like to throw that out there?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Please, we're on UnidosUS.org. You can sign up to our newsletter on our website. Our newsletter, we have an education newsletter, but we also have different issue areas. We also cover health, housing, workforce development, and the Latino vote. So you can sign up for our newsletter to receive information across all of those issue areas. And then we also have an advocacy page. So if you're interested in finding out how you can also participate and do more, you can sign up there and receive our advocacy newsletter. And then we're on social at We Are Unidos US. We're on all of the platforms. I won't name them all, but we're on all of them.
Yes.
At We Are Unidos US.
Great. That's fantastic. And, you don't have to be a Latino or be in the mix of the Hispanic community to be part of the movement, to be out there disseminating this information to families and people out there that may not know about Unidos and what services and what they're all about. Maybe people want to contribute. Maybe people want to find out more what they have access to. I mean, this is a valuable resource, and there's no reason why we shouldn't share that with everyone. I know I'm going to go home, go back to school, and just tell the whole world screaming from the mountaintops, man. Best to you too, Elizabeth. Everybody, give it up for Miss Elizabeth Zamudio. Thank you so much for joining us on this program. It was a real pleasure, a real treat to have you talk and take time out of your busy day. You got to get back in the trenches, girl. Get back into that fight,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And until next time, everybody, God bless.